Buying a car can be a complete pain in and for any of us who've gone through that process, we know that doing that can be an absolute nightmare. You'll have a hurdle of people throwing suggestions at you, such as Ford, Toyota, and never really give you the specific model, but have you ever considered a Mazda? What's up guys, my name is Chris and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not new to the channel, welcome back. And in today's episode, I'll be going over a hidden gem in the automotive industry that a lot of people don't talk about. So stick around and stay tuned, take notes, because you're now watching The Breakdown. If you haven't already, do me a favor, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It would mean a lot to me and the YouTube algorithm if you did. Thank you so much to those who've already subscribed. It means a lot to me and I really appreciate all of you guys taking the time to walk with me on this journey. And now, back to the show. Mazda originally began its journey in Hiroshima, Japan as a cork company in 1920. Originally named the Toyo Kyogo,
I feel like I'm messing these names up.
Toyo Kyogo, the limited company, they actually decided they wanted to change the name to the Mazda Motor Corporation after the god Akira Matsuda. And the in-state manager at the time, Mr. Chichiro Matsuda,
I hope I said that right.
he actually wanted to create something that was a little more peaceful and a little more tranquil. From 1931 and on, Mazda made it a point to be the company that is known for celebrating driving. Being only a few years away from the gas crisis of 1973, Mazda couldn't have come in at a more inopportune time, and for a couple of years they struggled to find their footing in American markets. But there would be an opportunity that they would come up about, and this is how you get the Ford and Mazda merger acquisition of 1979. This is how you see the models that we're most notable for associating with the Mazda brand, such as the 626, the B3000, and the 323, which ended up becoming the Mazda 3. And yes, there's some controversy on how you say Mazda and how you say Mazda. I'm still working on it. The actual term is Matsuda, but you know, of course we don't say it that way. In 2008 is when we see the global recession, and this would be the point where Mazda would take matters into its own hands and focus on becoming not only a much more notable brand, but also a much more premium and upscale brand. And this would be when we would see the divorce and the separation of the states between Ford and Mazda. In 2010 is when Mazda first introduced their Shiner concept as well as their Kodo design, which is the soul of motion design. The soul of motion design was beautiful, elegant, sleek, and unlike anything we had ever seen from the small automaker. This would also be the same year that we would see the Sky Active technology come into the automotive industry, which basically shook the world by storm in its efficiency as well as its power delivery. And it would be the first time that we would ever see something so notable next to the rotary engine from Mazda. Now that I've given you a history lesson, let's get to the good stuff. In 2012, this is when we would see the Sky Active G technology introduced into the world in its first application, which was the Mazda CX-5. The Mazda CX-5 was a small, compact CUV that pretty much did everything right from what we would know from Mazda going forward, but this was just the beginning. Upon its introduction, the Mazda CX-5 would come with a 2-liter, naturally aspirated, direct injected Sky Active G engine that pumped out 150 horsepower and 154 pound-feet of torque. Now, this could go to either the front or all-wheel drive, and it came with either a 6-speed auto or, what was interesting at the time, a 6-speed manual. Of course, when it came out, it came with standard features such as a 60/40 split seat, keyless entry, and a 4-speaker audio system. But for 2012, it also came with heated seats, navigation, Bose sound stereo, and a sunroof. So of course, it was a big deal because it was also at an affordable price. When the CX-5 came out, it was a hit. Journalists praised the CX-5 for its design, its styling, as well as its practicality and its handling. Now, one of the major drawbacks that the journalists found was that the 150 horsepower was not adequate enough, and so Mazda would later rectify this by introducing a larger 2.5-liter engine that pumped out 184 horsepower, giving a total of a 34 horsepower bump from the previous engine. There wasn't much different in fuel economy either. In its first year, the Mazda CX-5 would go on to sell 43,676 units. In total, it would go on to sell 444,627 units in its entire generational run. Now that's pretty good. At the end of the first generation, Mazda decided they wanted to take things more upmarket, more premium, and more upscale. So in 2016, this is when we see the introduction of the second generation Mazda CX-5. and boy is a looker. During its design press release in 2016, Mr. Julian Montuzzi, the director of design at the time, noted that he wanted to have something that people could feel special just by looking at it, and that was the result of the Kodo design that was introduced at this point. Now, this was an evolution from what we saw from the Shinari concept. Going forward, Mazda really wanted to focus on not just the practicality and functionality of their cars, but also truly make their cars more upmarket. A core philosophy at Mazda is the power of hands.
As you see, I like to play with my hands a little bit.
But the power of hands is where a lot of their philosophies, processes, and design elements come from, because they really believe in human engineering and human-focused centralized designs. When this came out in 2016, it was a big deal. We had never seen a Mazda look like this before, and it really shone out a lot more, and Mazdas now are more distinct than the competition. Its gorgeous design, premium interior, and affordability made it quite the value proposition for Mazda. When this generation came out, there were two engine choices. So there was the carryover from the last generation, which was the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated direct injected engine that pumped out 184 horsepower. Now, the one that you really wanted was the 2.5 liter turbocharged version, which had 250 horsepower and 310 massive pound-feet of torque, which was crazy because it was pretty much unheard of from something that we would expect from Mazda, but not too far, because we also had the Mazda Speed, but that's something we expected in the boy racer, not necessarily a family hauler. This could be mated with either the front or all-wheel drive setup. The 6-speed manual transmission was still an option, but you could only get that with front wheels and the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated version. The 2.5 liter turbocharged could only be mated with the all-wheel drive setup, and you can only get this in the highest of trims. Now, this generation was a little bit different. So in this generation, instead of just a regular radio, you actually got the Mazda Connect infotainment system, which was pretty big for the time because a lot of people were moving on to infotainment systems and not just regular radios and CD players. You also got the 40-20-40 split, which means that all 3 seats in the back seats could be split up. You had LED lights, Bluetooth, as well as a 4-speaker audio setup system. Now, if you moved up to the higher trims, you could also get the Bose stereo system, sunroof, and leather seats. Leather heated seats, mind you. Leather and cooled, actually. 2020 would be our most significant year because it definitely defines what it means to be the safety standard for Mazda in the CX-5 in particular. Across all boards, the safety standard suite was standard, and what this includes is the blind cross traffic rear monitoring alert. I can't say that to save my life. The rear traffic cross monitoring alert, the blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, forward collision warning, as well as lane keep assist, in addition to the most important one, which was pedestrian detection. The MSRP when the Mazda CX-5 was first introduced for this generation was $24,045. In 2022, we would see the MSRP as a base price starting at $26,650. So now that you have the history, because you know I was gonna give you a history lesson, the question is, should you buy one? I'm gonna say yes with a caveat. There are a few years you should avoid. Drivers would experience issues with the accessory power outlets, which means that they basically couldn't use their radio. Also, when they were driving, the car would pretty much come to a lurch and begin to start to jerk and create a feel of jerkiness. And there also was some engine seizures as well. So the 2014 is something you don't want. The 2018 year model also had issues when the car would basically stop and it would take customers hours to get it to turn back on. In addition to oil consumption and engine oil issues, customers also complained of premature brake wear, which of course is a pain because the cost of these cars is not cheap. So the last thing you want to deal with is a lot of quality issues from the manufacturer. Also, the side rear caliper was prone to getting stuck, which will also lead to premature brake wear. But the one that you really want to avoid is the 2016 model. The 2016 model had the most number of complaints from carcomplaints.com, with the biggest complaints of exterior lighting. And I know that doesn't sound the same as engine seizures and the fun stuff like premature brake wear, but it's a big deal because if you can't see, you can definitely run into something without knowing it. Not to mention, trying to get a replacement for these parts took many customers weeks to get taken care of. And the last thing you want is your car to be out of commission as much as you paid for it. But overall, should you buy one? I think you should. I think it's a great vehicle. I think that Mazda really made sure that they wanted to give customers the best experience possible from a driving and a reliability standpoint. RepairPal.com reported that the CX-5 had pretty much a 4 out of 5 star rating, which means that overall it had low complaints despite what we know about the 2014, 2016, and 2018 models. Now for 2016 to 2018, this is kind of when we see the introduction of the redesign. So you know, if you haven't seen my video already about redesigns and elements and why the brand doesn't matter, go check that video out because it's important. If I had to give anything, I would say get a 2020. That's where you get the certified pre-owned model. If you don't know anything about me and my certified pre-owned models, you'll know that I love getting certified pre-owned because especially for as much as we pay for these cars and how long we'll keep them, you want to keep them under warranty as long as possible. And the depreciation curve has pretty much bowed out in the 2020 as opposed to you buying a brand new 2022. If you do decide to buy a 2022, it would be best to lease it and not to buy it. If you have not already seen my video about if the used car market is crashing, go ahead and check that out because it's also important. So with that being said, feel free to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like the CX-5, if you don't. And until the next video, I will see you guys later. Again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And until the next video, see you later.